I was just getting. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us to this meeting of the Committee of Education. We are good now. All right. Okay, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to the members of the community who might be online watching this committee meeting today. Please allow me to introduce the members of this committee that are present today. Our Vice Chair is Representative Sheila Babalta. Present also is Representative Edwin Probst. Also present is Representative Dinita Yangtamai. And Representative Ralph Umel is in the building, just stepped out, but he is here. Online and present in the House, but not part of the committee, but will be joining us this afternoon is Representative Karina Magofnia. I almost had the wrong last name. And joining us online is Representative Tina Sablan. The LB staff that will be assisting us today, legal counsel is Brendan Layett. IT and streaming is Jonathan Diaz, and our legislative assistant is Cameron Nicholas. Our Sergeant at Arms, Sergeant Towai, is joining us today. And we have PSS in the gallery today, and they will be giving us updates. We were supposed to have the chairman from the COVID task force join us also, but I just received a message that he would not be able to make it today. So it will be just an update from PSS. I believe we have a quorum of 5 members present, and I call this meeting to order. I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt our agenda today. Can I get a second? Discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Anyone against say nay. The ayes have it, and our agenda is adopted. In our agenda, we have minutes from September 8th. I trust you all received a copy. If anybody would like to accept and adopt our minutes from September 8th, can I get a motion? Any seconds? All right. And all those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. The ayes have it. The motion to adopt our minutes from September 8th is passed. Next on our agenda are public comments. I open the floor to public comments from the gallery. I do not see any public other than our PSS partners. And so I will slowly move on the agenda. Thank you. All right, next up is updates from our PSS acting commissioner and his team. If you guys can please come to the gallery, our Sergeant at Arms will let you guys in and make yourselves comfortable. Did you have slides that you wanted to show us that we can post up? Okay. So if you want to come on over, and Cameron will help you, whoever slides they are. We can connect your computer. Thank you, Cam. Getting better at this. It can connect from there? Oh, okay. Thank you. I almost forgot. Taking notes for us today is Malia Johnson. Thank you, Malia. She works in both my office and Representative Sablon's office. All right, while we are waiting to get their presentation rolling, today's meeting has two main parts of our agenda. The main first part will be focused on hearing updates from our PSS partners on the opening of schools and any other great updates they can share with us about funding they've received from the feds or anything else that they feel is important. And then I'm sure our colleagues will also ask a few questions. But while we are waiting for that, if there's any opening remarks you'd like to give, Acting Commissioner Magofnia, you're welcome to begin. Welcome to your house.
Half a day. Good afternoon. Please excuse me, I was not expecting this. I was thinking that this was going to be an informal meeting in your conference room. So I did not prepare a statement, but I do want to take this time to thank you for the opportunity to share our plans for reopening of school next week and also our mitigation plans with regards to COVID and the updates with regards to our funding and any other question that this committee may have with regards to education. We are more than happy to share this information with the legislature and most especially the education committee. So with that, I do have Dr. Yvonne Pangilinan with me. She is the Senior Director for the Student Support Service and Mental Health Program. And to my right is Mr. Tim Thornburg, the Federal Programs Officer. So we're here and we're ready to answer any questions. We did prepare a quick slideshow to share some information with the Education Committee. So if that's ready to go, Dr. Bonnie will take it away.
Proceed. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. So first and foremost, before we share our mitigation measures, we do want to say that on the forefront of our minds, and most importantly, we are worried about the impact that school closures have had and will continue to have on our students, our staff, and our community. If you could advance the slide, please. So we do know from the past year and a half of several phases of school closures that there is interrupted learning, that the gap that we see is even greater with our disadvantaged students, that there is some trouble validating and measuring growth. If we don't have students on campus, then assessing their performance, assessing their growth becomes even harder and even more critical for our seniors who are on their way to college. Um, School is one of the places that we can guarantee a meal for most of our students. And so nutrition also suffers a lack of physical outlets, the disconnection with teachers and students, peers, and caring adults on the school campus. mental health concerns that we've had. Our mental health concerns and our mental health referrals have almost doubled the number that we had last year for the year alone. And so we know that even with the social isolation that our students are experiencing, that for our most vulnerable students who might be in situations where they are in danger, that issue is, something that our school counselors and our partners in advocacy areas are worried about. And then COVID-19 and community spread is in the forefront of our minds. Somehow we have created this illusion that closing schools means keeping our kids safer, when in fact a school campus is one of the safest place kids can be, and we can control the behaviors, we can control the safety measures on school campuses, but we have no influence, no control what happens outside of there. So we're worried that during this time that schools are closed and kids come back, that we do another screening and we'll see even more cases. So if you advance the slides, we want to share with you the 3 prongs that we use to determine how to open schools. At the very, very initial stages, we always look at the community vulnerability level. We look at the CVL because it tells us what the community spread might be and how it might impact our student population. Now, there's a formula. I'm not going to go into CHCC's formula, but there is a formula for the CVL, and we know that even now it is still green. And so that tells us that our kids and our faculty and staff are safe. We also use our school readiness measures to determine whether or not or how we're going to open schools. Do we have the infrastructure in place to provide safety for students and staff? Do we have the staff that is needed for the classrooms, not just the classrooms, but on campus to provide monitoring? And lastly, do we have the resources to implement safety measures? So do we have PPEs? Do we have the funding to support revamping the classrooms, putting extra safety precautions in place? And then lastly, we look at the governor's executive orders. If you advance the slide on, I'm sorry, this is just a detailed explanation of how we determine opening schools. And so we look at the CVL, we measure it against the rate in the CVL, and then we determine from there whether or not we're going to open schools in cohorts, whether or not we're going to implement extra safety precautions. Extra safety precautions might look something like static cohorting. Static cohorting is when students are in one classroom the whole day. They do not transition to other classes. Their meals come to them. And that way, if there is any need for contact tracing, it is a lot easier. Or whether we are going to open face-to-face, keep the 3Ws in place, and provide other opportunities for students, or whether or not we're going to close schools. And schools can be open in remote learning, in hybrid situations, face-to-face, or again, learning packets, which we did the very first time we closed schools. So in October 28, during, and you can advance the slide, sorry. In October 28, during school-based screening, for which we have partnered with CHCC, there were some cases discovered on our school campuses. The first thing that we do when we find positive cases in our school campus is we work with the COVID task force. We work in conjunction with the COVID task force to determine whether or not we need to close one school, a classroom, a cluster, or all schools. Immediately afterwards, we provide deep sanitizing, to all the school campuses, and we institute communication with our stakeholders. This time, We had a governor's directive to close all of the public and private schools on on all three islands, as well as the Northern Marianas College. We did do deep sanitizing of all school campuses, and then we let out a parent survey uh, to collect feedback from our families on whether or not they felt safe on our school campuses. On November 11th, the State Board of Education met. They extended the closures to November 29. We sent out follow-up surveys last week to parents, to students, and to our teachers and staff, and instituted online learning through Blackboard. Also providing meals through Grab and Go in several locations, and then worked with CHCC to provide ongoing vaccination efforts on our school campuses, all of our school campuses. As it stands, our vaccination rates for the public school system are pretty high. In all of the elementary schools, our vaccination rates are at least 81% and above. In the secondary schools, we're also at 81% or above. With some of the schools, you see Dr. Rita H. Enos Junior Senior High School, they're at 100%. We have Tinian Elementary at 100%, and Saipan Southern High School at 100%. This is just for staff vaccination rates on school campuses. On the next slide, I think it's the next slide. There. On the next slide, you'll see the secondary school campus vaccination rates. Let me just pull it up. The way that we determine whether or not secondary schools are going to open is different from elementary schools. So in the elementary schools, we had measured the rate of vaccination for only staff and teachers. And if staff and teachers were at 80%, we opened schools for full face-to-face for all elementary schools. In the secondary schools, because then the eligible age for vaccination was from 12 to 17, we had to measure both staff and student vaccination rates. So as it stands, we only have 3 secondary schools that are open 5 days a week or that were open 5 days a week for full days. And those schools were Tinian Junior Senior High School, RHI, Dr. Rita Hokuk Enos Junior Senior High School, and Marianas High School. We do have forecasts for these schools, and so you'll see in parentheses that Saipan Southern High School is currently at 77% and is forecasted to be at 81% as soon as those students, I think there's a handful of students, get their second dose. So we are tracking and monitoring the vaccination rates in the secondary schools very closely. Recently, the eligible age for vaccination was lowered from 5 to 11 years old, and we have started vaccination campaigns on all campuses. To date, we have had 66 students at Coblerville Elementary School vaccinated, 68 at San Vicente, and 48 students at Tinian Elementary School. And tomorrow, Oleai Elementary School does their vaccination. So pretty high rates of vaccination for staff and students alike. And that is only the first phase of ensuring that our campuses are safe. In the next slide, you will see the mitigation measures that have been put in place since February 2019. So on all of our school campuses, there have been modifications done in the classroom from early Head Start to high school classrooms. Physical barriers are in place. In the early Head Starts, they also have distancing barriers with the early Head Start equipment, right? So play centers are also separated. Cohorting in especially the secondary schools that are not yet at 80%. Those students come in different cohorts. It might be different days, or in the case of Hopwood Middle School, a cohort comes in, 2 cohorts come in and rotate throughout the day and through the day. Ventilation and UV lights have been placed in all of the air conditioning units. Ventilation has been, I'm going to talk about ventilation. That's a FDM thing, but working on ventilation, UV lights, mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing, 3 Ws, sanitizing and hygiene etiquette throughout the school, monitoring, tracking our students and our staff symptomatic rates, screening protocols with CHCC. We have not yet been able to institute screening during school closures. We will as soon as classrooms open once more, but we are right now in the middle of vaccination efforts. In the next slide, you'll see the guidance and protocols for prevention. So again, our school staff and teachers are constantly messaging and sharing awareness of hygiene, respiratory etiquette. Sanitizing schedules in the classroom have been created. Let's see. Signage and visual markers, protocols for symptomatic individuals, and they vary in the Head Start, early Head Start. They need medical clearances. In K to 12, we ask parents of kids who might be symptomatic to monitor for 3 days. And if fevers are not reduced, then to call their primary care providers and get medical clearance. We have hired nurses. We have 4 nurses on board at PSS and school monitors to help with the screening, and right now they're helping with vaccination as well. We have funding support for supplies and PPEs in all 20 of our schools, and again, UV filters. In the case of identification of positive cases on campus, we work again with the COVID-19 task force to determine the type of closure that might be needed, send information to our stakeholders in the form of memos, and also using whatever media outlets we have. Sanitizing of schools, evacuation. We have evacuation protocols. We have not yet used them, thankfully, but we do have evacuation protocols in place. And then readmission criterias and communication plans if we might see cohorts of students who test positive. Continuity of learning. Again, we have Blackboard. And so our staff and teachers continue to use online platforms even when face-to-face schools are open. In the case that schools might be closed, they can transition very easily back to Blackboard. Social emotional learning is in place and mental health supports for all of our schools. This is just a little bit of information about the school nurses that we have hired to provide health education to our students. When they're not helping with vaccination or screening, our school nurses do collect health information, immunization information. They provide training, they provide workshops to staff and teachers. They've been at PTA meetings, also sharing health information and helping our staff and our students learn how to live healthy lives. And we also have hired school outreach monitors who work at primarily the elementary schools, and they work on safety mitigation plans on campus. So they help with monitoring, they help with reminding all the kids, because some schools we have very, very many kids who need reminders to put their masks on, to watch their distance, and to stay safe while they're in school. So right now we are still experiencing school closures. We hope by November 29th that we will be able to reopen our schools again. We know that our students, their learning loss has been one of the things that we have been trying so hard to get them back into the classroom so we can bridge some of those gaps. And the mental health issues that they're facing, we haven't been able to open our school our counseling sessions. We have tier 2 counseling for groups of students who might need support that is currently on hold because of school closures. And that's just a very brief overview, but hoping you have questions that we can help elaborate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bani. That was very, very informative. I'm really glad to hear about more of the filters and UV lights, and I'm sure our members have maybe a few more clarifying questions. So if it's all right with you, Acting Commissioner, may I open the floor, or did you guys have other things you wanted to add?
However you want to do it.
All righty. Well, while it's fresh, I'd like to open the floor for members if you guys have any questions about the mitigation plans and updates from PSS regarding COVID and closures at this point. Yes, recognize Representative Probst.
Thank you. And thank you, Acting Commissioner and your team for today coming in and providing us with these updates. I just wanted to ask with the um, with the vaccination for the 5 to 11-year-olds, how has that been in terms of discussions from parents? Is there a lot of pushback that you're receiving? What are you seeing right now, the trend with parents when it comes to having their kids vaccinated? Um, like, is there a majority of them that are coming to you, and how's that been? I'm just saying, the reason why I ask is we, of course, hear from all our constituents, and it's been on both sides. So I'm just wondering how that's been, and with what you guys have been going through. Thank you.
So thank you for that. So we haven't done an official survey on the 5 to 11 vaccination and how parents feel about it, but just from discussions that we've been a part of, it's a pretty even split. We have parents that are for the vaccination, and then we also have parents that have concerns that are still hesitant in making their child receive the vaccination. So that right now, PSS, the vaccinations are not a mandate, so we don't really hear too much about it. It's really just whenever the parents want to make or share their concerns with us. Did you want to add?
Can I add? I just looked at the parent survey this afternoon, and we did ask the question if, excuse me, if your child is 5 to 11 years old, have they been vaccinated? We had a little under 600 parents respond to the survey, and of that 600, we did see 15% of them, their children were already vaccinated, and another 14% were planning to get vaccinated. So while it's true, we don't have responses directly on whether or not they will get their child vaccinated. Already some of them have and have reported that.
All right. Thank you, Rep. Probst. Anything else? Okay. Opening the floor to others. Recognize Rep. Denita Yangtamai.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Um, I just want to share a concern by some parents, because they're very afraid with this community spread and PSS opening up the school. Um, what are you going to tell these parents to soothe to allow their kids to go to school? For I don't know.
Can I? Okay. So we understand that there is a lot of concern. A lot of parents still feel uneasy about sending their kids back to school. With regards to PSS, we look at data, we look at the science, and we work very closely with CHCC and the governor's COVID-19 task force, the health professionals of the CNMI, and before we make any decision, we make sure that the the data that is out there and the advice from our public health officials, that we take all of that and we ensure the parents, that also with the protocols that we have in place at schools, we have a lot of protocols from the 3Ws to the sanitizing and the social distancing. We want to ensure our parents that schools are safe to return to. In the case of the one school that was identified, that one student positive, um, I want to say that because of our stringent protocols, that one student's class, none of them tested positive. It was just that one student, and it's because we're able to adhere to the rules. So I believe that the schools are safe. And because our health professionals are also saying that it's safe, the doctors are the epidemiologists that's on island. Um, we take that into consideration, and we are beginning an education campaign to assist CHCC also in educating the community. So hopefully, by disseminating all this information, parents and the community as a whole can feel more comfortable with with what's going on nowadays with COVID. But the other thing also is I understand the concern, but there is also that concern for education, and we need to address that concern. We need to ensure that the learning loss is addressed. We have students that schools is really their avenue for their safe haven. If they need to report whatever needs to be reported, this is where they go to feel safe if they need that. So these are just so many. There's a list of reasons why we really need to open, but that's the main points for now that I want to share.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Danita Yangtamai. If I can just add a clarifying question to kind of go along with what she said. I noticed in your slides, you guys created a mode of instructional procedures that correlates to the COVID task force. What is the number? It's like are we safe today, right? So we've been at green all this time. And so you created that mode of instruction procedure based on what color safety we're at. How long have you guys have had that procedure in place?
I know that this is with COVID, everything's new. So I believe this was just maybe a year ago that this was developed in collaboration with CHCC.
And so to that point, you've had a procedure in place since the beginning of this experience that we're all going through with COVID. And we are in level green at this point, and we have been in level green. And although these things have happened in the community, the change of the color of readiness has not changed. And so closing of schools maybe is something that didn't even follow that procedure because it was even more making more safety measures than what was actually planned for. So you're being overly cautious even in these closures that have happened. Is that correct?
So we do have our PSS playbook that we use whenever these cases pop up, and in our playbook, for the recent um, event. Initially, we did not close all PSS schools. We only closed the two affected schools. But then after the governor sent out his directive, that's when we and NMC and all the other private schools followed suit. But yes, we did we do have our playbook. We did follow our playbook, but then it also states in our playbook that in collaboration with the CHCC and COVID task force and the governor's office. So because that directive came out, we followed it.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Sheila Babalta.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you very much for being here today. My question is in regards to the students who will be availing of the bus services. Will that resume next week as well? And what role does PSS play to ensure that the students at the bus stop are abiding by the guidelines? Because I totally agree with the fact that students are safe at schools because of all the guidelines implemented. How far does that extend into the bus services?
So this is where we would reach out to, our partners. We make sure that the teachers are informing the students. We reach out to our PTSA to help with the parents, to inform the parents, because at the bus stop, we don't have staff assigned to the bus stop to enforce the 3Ws or the protocols in PSS. So we really would like to work with our partners, most especially the parents, to make sure that if they, to educate their children when they go to the bus stop, remember the social distancing, remember to wear your mask, and so that way the bus stops, hopefully all the students would follow the advice. But then when they go on the bus, all the protocols are going to be adhered to.
Does the buses are deep sanitized as well, but not the bus stops? So I'm trying to get to who's responsible for the bus stops. I know that this comes up often in our discussions, but that's really where our students begin to congregate right before heading to school. And although I just think anyone, regardless of age, right, will need constant reminding and guideline, I guess, reminders about the 3Ws and all that. But at the end of the day, I think a discussion needs to be had on bus stop responsibilities.
I can say from my experience that until this child walks onto the bus itself, that's when that student becomes in becomes the responsibility of PSS, because that's when PSS's responsibility begins. That was always what we learned in our training.
Yeah.
And so
So then
that's where we do need community partners and parents who do follow their kids to the bus stop to be helping out with that enforcement there.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I think just for future conversation around the bus stop responsibilities, we really welcome all partners, because I don't think everyone understands that role, right? That where does PSS's responsibility begin and end in regards to our bus riders? But thank you.
I remember in loco parentis begins at the bus. Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Any other members would like to ask questions regarding the presentation we just saw? Oh, okay, recognize Representative Magofnia.
Hi, thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, PSS, for coming out. Just in line with Sheila's questions regarding not so much the bus stop, but the bus. So when the kids get on the bus, with respect to the protocols on social distancing, are they also like, are they not sitting next to each other anymore? So they're kind of sitting the 6 feet apart, or how does that work?
So with the bus rules, so as soon as they get on the bus, they get their temperature checked. They must wear their face mask. And if you're living in the same household, so brother and sister can sit on the
Together.
same chair. But then if they're not in the same household, then they would sit at every other chair.
Got it. Can I ask one more?
Proceed.
So, with regards to the parent survey that you had mentioned, is the survey based on the parents' discretion whether or not to get their child vaccinated, or is the survey on whether or not the students should go back to school?
So we asked three questions in the parent survey, the teacher survey, and the student survey. The first one is about vaccination. Most of the vaccination questions are in the parent survey. For the teachers and the students, we just ask them if you are vaccinated. The second one is their level of safety, how safe do you feel returning to school? And then the third questions are around mental health issues.
And I'm just curious, with regards to the vaccination, are you guys able to share what is the most common feedback that you receive from parents as to like why they are against vaccination, or maybe not against, but just don't feel comfortable vaccinating their kids just yet?
Right, we have specific answers to that question, prompts to that question. It might involve a uncomfortable about the contents of the vaccine, um, unsure about or the time that it took to create the vaccine. So it's very new. And the survey actually closes tomorrow. So we are waiting to see the results. We do know that under 600 parents have responded. We've had, I think, almost 800 teachers and staff respond. And we have over 1,000 students respond to the survey. But we don't have the results quite yet.
All right, thank you. I'm going to recognize Representative Tina Sablan, and then I will recognize Representative Probst.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, colleagues, and good afternoon, PSS. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my first question has to do with CHCC's proposed regulations to mandate the vaccine for eligible school children as a condition for enrollment in either public or private schools or in childcare facilities. And I understand that PSS did request that CHCC promulgate such regulations. And I guess I'm wondering at this point, I know that the public comment period is still open, and I'm getting ready to sign off on a letter with the chair to request that CHCC conduct oral hearings on the proposed regulations. But at this juncture, I wanted to ask PSS leadership, what is your position on the proposal to mandate the vaccines for eligible students in order to enroll in school?
I don't know if I can speak on behalf of the board, but so I do recall that letter that Rep. Tina Sablan was talking about, that letter from PSS to CHCC. And really the main point of that letter was not to tell CHC to mandate it, but instead that because PSS, we are not the health professionals, that we should not be the one mandating vaccinations, and it should really come from CHCC. So that was the whole point of that letter, that if CHCC were to include it in the mandated vaccination that every student must get before going to school, and if they include it in that, then of course PSS, we would have to enforce it because it is it now becomes a health law.
Mhm. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Because I think that CHCC did take it as a request from PSS to consider promulgating regulations. So you're saying that PSS did not request it, or at least that wasn't the intention?
No. What I'm saying is, so there was conversation in the past that where they were asking if PSS could mandate the vaccination. And PSS, we said, no, we shouldn't be the ones to mandate the vaccination, and it should be
I see.
CHCC to tell us to mandate.
Okay, okay. But so just getting to the question then, does PSS have a position about whether or not it should be mandated?
I don't have an answer to that question right now.
Okay. When do you expect the results of your surveys to be ready for public dissemination? And will you be sharing that with CHC?
So the survey closes tomorrow afternoon, and then after that, we would gather all the information and we would share it to the PSS board, and then we would share it also with all our stakeholders.
Does your survey include a question for parents about how they feel about a mandatory vaccine?
Does it?
I'm sorry, I can't really hear. Could you speak into the mic?
Sorry. Not this one. We did have a survey early in the school year about vaccines, but at that time, the eligible age range was um, 12 to 17, and we did have questions about mandatory vaccinations. This time, we didn't ask them what their perceptions were about mandating the vaccine. We just asked them questions about whether or not their child was vaccinated between 5 and 11, and then again between 12 and up, and whether or not they plan to have their children vaccinated.
I see. And so what was the response the first time you asked the question about mandatory vaccines?
So in the first time that we had asked the question, let me see. I'm pulling up the survey results from that beginning of the year. Attitudes towards the COVID-19 vaccine, and again, this was for the 12 to 17-year-old age range. 60% of our parents responded that they were concerned about the contents and side effects. 37% felt that it was too new, too rushed, or that there wasn't enough evidence. 14% did not trust the vaccine. 11% were not bothered about children getting COVID-19. 10% feel that their children have other health issues that are more of a priority. 9% believe that children hardly got COVID-19. 4% had religious reasons, and 3% said that they had already had COVID-19.
Okay. Oh, interesting. But that was last year. So
That was
I
at
guess
the
it's
beginning
possible
of this school
that
year.
views have changed since then, right? Okay. Well, I just wanted to give a heads up before I wrap up my questions. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we should be sending out that letter requesting an oral hearing that CHCC conduct on the proposal. That should be going out today. And yeah, and I'd really encourage PSS to weigh in on that, with the position one way or another, or at least some of the insights that you've gleaned from these surveys that you've done, and all the outreach sessions that you've had with your parents and students and teachers and other stakeholders. And then finally, I wanted to ask, I think the acting commissioner was making reference to like a playbook that PSS follows. And I wanted to understand, I guess, from the playbook, like why the decision to shut down Rhoda Antonian schools when the cases that were identified seem to only be on Saipan. We actually have received a number of questions about that from our Rhode Antonian constituents. Thank you, and I yield, Madam Chair.
So going back to the when this first happened, initially we were only going to close the two schools. But then after we received the governor's directive to close all schools, then we went ahead and closed all schools.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't based then on your playbook. That was just the governor's directive that you were following.
Yes.
That was kind of the
Okay.
point I was making, Reptina, was that they have a code of instruction based on the different levels of safety that, the COVID task force prints out daily in the paper. Yet it is overridden when we get a directive from the governor, is what I have understood in today's presentation, which is why Tinian and Rhoda were closed and why every other school was also closed and not just the one school, and et cetera.
Oh,
Is my
that's interesting.
understanding.
Okay. All right. Thank you for
Unless,
clarifying that.
acting chair, would you like to clarify?
Yeah, if I could.
Go
So
for it.
I think overridden by the governor is a very strong statement. We had been considering what schools to close based on the positive cases that were identified. At that time, we had decided that the schools that were impacted would be closed unless we could find any kind of association with other students at other schools, right, through contact tracing. When the governor sent out the directive to close all of the schools, and private schools included, we followed suit. So I don't think it was overridden by the governor. We had our plans in place, and then the governor sent out the directive, and we didn't question the directive because we didn't have all the information. So thinking that it was a proactive approach and that maybe there were more schools involved or more cases involved in our community, we decided it was the best thing to do and to use those 10 days to sanitize all of our campuses and to plan for reopening as soon as possible.
So during the time, were you guys in communication with the task force so they were telling you which schools were also affected, or did you guys not know that from that side as well?
So when the first case was identified, we were in communications with the COVID task force, and as the day progressed, they were dealing with all the contact tracing, so we weren't getting information in a timely fashion. So we were just trying to make our best decisions.
Understood. Thank you. I will recognize Representative Probst now. Thank you for waiting so patiently, sir.
Thank you. I wanted to just say that it's difficult. You're the position that you're in, and we hear obviously a lot from our constituents, and it is sometimes the frustration from parents. I can only imagine how much you must hear and how much you have to endure as well. But I do know that the difficulty of not having our children in school, just the overall development of our kids, not just their educational background, but their mental health, their well-being. We all grew up. We didn't really go through all this craziness. Once in a while, we'd have a typhoon, and then we were back in school. But that's where everything happens. That's where you have your friends, your social life, and how important it is to be socializing with people. So, when we did hear from some parents, because they work and everything, there was frustration when the schools got shut down. Partly because everything else was open. I, I I think there's like some frustration with the parents, and I am speaking for some of them who mentioned this to me, that the schools were shut down, but yet everything else stayed open. Churches normal, right? Funerals, huge funerals, uh, all these everything, and yes, they have precautions there, but we also have to have faith in the public school system, in what you guys have been implementing and what you have been doing in keeping our our students safe. I mean, the fact is, I walked into the store this morning. Attended a funeral. There's so many opportunities to have it spread. I just wonder, uh, is it is the fear that it's going to be spread at school because the vaccination rate is lower? Is there more opportunities for COVID to spread at the school level versus having a big family party of 200 people, or going to a funeral that had 400 people walk through to offer condolences? There's a disconnect here, and I think moving forward, it's going to take a lot of education and discussion and trying to explain to parents about vaccine and the truth and the non-truths about it, because there's so much noise in between, and I have to deal with that. I get blasted on social media if I even talk about my child getting vaccinated. Oh, you're one of them, and they get all really ruffled by that, instead of trying to have a civil, intelligent uh, discourse on this. I hear all the time, no one knows what's in that vaccine. Well, did you know what was in it when you got your polio shot? MMR? When you ate a can of spam this morning, do you know what's in there? I could tell you. So there is there's like moving forward, are you guys going to be working on like encouraging the vaccine, or do you have some sort of promotional campaign or something to have kids vaccinated? Or are you going to depend on largely on CHC or team up with them to encourage parents? Since if you're not going to make it a mandate, then are you putting in steps to try to encourage them to get their kids vaccinated? For the record, my family, everybody's vaccinated. My son, 8 years old, Logan, we had a long talk about it. My wife and I with him, and he wanted to get vaccinated. He got vaccinated. He wasn't mandated to do it, but we felt it was something. And I got blowback from some of my friends because of that. They're like, "You're putting your child in danger." So it's a very difficult thing when we have these discussions because people are very concerned, and it's true. But if we're not going to mandate it, how do you encourage them to get the vaccine? Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. So yes, we are going to have a campaign for the vaccination for the ages 5 to 11, just like how we had it for our age group of 12 to and above for our students. We want to give the same opportunities for our children from between the ages of 5 and 11. And I do agree that vaccination, this is our best defense against COVID. And so this is why PSS, we will be campaigning again for the vaccination this this time around.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. And I will comment that at the board meeting, they had an excellent presentation by the CHCC epidemiologist who really gave wonderful data to show how COVID spread does not happen in schools. COVID spread is happening in homes, at parties, at the wake, I don't know, wherever, but it's not happening in schools based on the data that we have here and also the data that has been researched across the country, because schools have been happening everywhere else almost, it seems, except the CNMI, at least at the face-to-face level. And that's another pressure that I feel like our education officials must also be under, because in America, where we get our moving papers from, the face-to-face courses are have been ongoing. And I know that this is a question that some constituents have asked me, and so I'm going to ask you guys, now that the FDA has approved it for 5 to 11-year-olds, and with the high schools and middle schools not allowed to have face-to-face until they reach that 80%, but the elementaries have been having face-to-face 5 days a week, are you going to also require that of the elementaries and not make them go face-to-face, or will they also be allowed to go face-to-face until they get that 75%? Because if that's the case, I hope the other schools get to go to school too.
So just to clarify, all the students are face to face, from kinder all the way up to 12th grade. All our students are face to face. It's when they hit the 80% is when they can go to a full classroom. So the schools that have not hit 80% are still doing cohorting, meaning only they split the classes into two cohorts. And then now for the elementary, because this is so new, the 5 to 11 just got approved. Um, we will be working with CHCC to see how this will affect our playbook. And we'll see based on their guidance if they will allow us to continue how we are doing the education at the elementary, instruction at the elementary, or if we would have to follow the cohorting now that they are in the eligible population for vaccination. Did you want to add?
If I may.
Please, I recognize Dr. Bonnie.
So according to the COVID-19 chairman, Warren Villagomez, he informed us that we would not have to try to reach 80 with the elementary schools, and my hope is that we don't. We've already started our efforts to vaccinate students in the elementary schools, and we're having some good results from parents. And I think that we have evidence and proof that we can open elementary schools safely already. We've opened them since the beginning of the school year. There's no reason to go back and have them cohort again to get to 80.
So would you say that we could also do that with the other schools who are close but not yet there so that they can have that equitable access?
Those are still things that COVID-19 task force is considering. We've asked to open the other schools, especially the schools that are very close to 80. We have Saipan Southern High School, and I think only 2 kids, if I'm not mistaken, need to get their second dose before they get to 80. So we have schools that are super close and are still waiting on guidance whether or not we can open them.
Thank you for the clarification. Um, So I guess we can reach out to our COVID task force chairman to ask him to see that the equity is important and that we need to open up for the other schools too. At least if you're a parent out there listening and you have kids that are going to one of those schools that are in cohorts, talk to the write your letter to your chairman of the task force. Okay, I know that there were a few other questions that wanted to be asked, but mainly on the disaster recovery. So is it all right if we ask a couple questions about that since you have Mr. Thornburg here? Okay, we wanted to know if there's any updates on disaster recovery and rebuilding projects. And I guess there's concern about FEMA projects and stuff like that. So if you could give us a little update on that, and if you could also tell us if the Hopwood study we directed in the Budget Act, where that might be and what steps you're at. Thank you.
Okay, FEMA. So PSS received about close to $60 million in FEMA funds to address damages from Typhoon Yutu, and majority of the schools were obligated about 2 years ago. But then just this year in April, PSS were finally able to get our matching requirement that would allow us to move forward with the projects. So CDBGDR is taking care of the 10% required cost share for all our FEMA projects. So when we finally got the official letter, we started moving forward with projects. Right now we are on phase 1. So we submitted 2 applications to CDBGDR. One is the MHS campus. The other one is the Tinian Elementary campus, totaling about $2 million. So which frees up $20 million in PAO projects that we are working on right now. So just an update, GTC is the school has been completed. All the projects are done. Tanapag Middle School, the project's still ongoing. Chacha, Ocean View, Cagman High, Cagman Elementary, these projects have begun already. We have conceptual designs for our 4 to 8 projects. Our 4 to 8, meaning there are bigger projects like the new building of DAUC, the new cafetorium at WSR, the new building C at WSR, another building C at FMS, the Hopwood Middle School, and the MHS CTE building. So we have conceptual designs for 4 of these projects, Hopwood and MHS. Hopwood, we did not come up with a conceptual design yet because the decision has not been made yet if we're going to stay at the current location or if we're going to be relocating to the Asperdido. The MHS, we are currently working with our A&E firm to do the building designs. And for a lot of our other projects too with FEMA, we are doing the A&E work. So we're hoping that we can get a lot of the A&E work done within a year, so that way we can push construction and finish all these projects. The Hopwood question. The CIP committee is meeting next month and this topic will be on the agenda. And we're hoping that at this CIP committee meeting, then the decision would be made, or at least to endorse a decision to the full board, and then the full board would be able to vote on whether to stay at the current location or move to the proposed new site.
Okay, thank you. I guess with respect to the feasibility study, we budgeted, I believe, $50,000 in this year's budget to do a feasibility study for this particular project. So that would help aid you guys in the decision making, or aid the board in that decision making. And so we were hoping that you guys would be able to get that done before the decision is made. So does that mean it's not on the table? Are you, we're not aware?
So I was not aware that there was funding set aside for the A&E for Hopwood, but now that I am aware, we can go ahead and I'll take a look into it. But I also know that the PAO, the Public Assistance Office, did mention that they would also do a feasibility study on the properties.
Thank you. Rep. Zalabon, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. I guess just to reiterate what you said, Chair. So the Budget Act, Acting Commissioner, the language actually was developed shortly after one of the board meetings that we attended, and even the amount of funding was set aside pursuant to an estimate that we got at that board meeting. And the idea was to do this feasibility study and to include public engagement and then look at, the pros and cons of the two properties, and then to present that, in a public report that would be given to the legislature and of course to your decision makers at PSS, to determine which would make more sense for, Hopwood's campus. And so, that funding should be available now for feasibility, not for A&E design. I just wanted to clarify that. It was for the feasibility study specifically.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan, and thank you, everyone else. Is there any other questions or comments for our visitors today from the members? Okay. With that said, I want to thank you all for coming here today and giving us these really important updates. Thank you for sharing the PowerPoint. And if you could also maybe send me that PowerPoint that you guys used from the epidemiologist to help share the information that was shared at the board meeting, I would love that. And then I can also share it with the members so that they could also see what efforts PSS has done to share with parents out there about the safety and just the plans that they have to help keep our kids from having these worries at school. With that said, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to share?
Just want to thank everybody, the committee. Thank you, Chairwoman, um, Vice, and everybody else in the committee. We do appreciate the support, and um, whatever support we can get, we definitely appreciate it. And thank you. We thank you for the opportunity, the time to share our reopening plans, and also update information from PSS with the whole committee. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for coming here today. And if I could just call a short recess so we can let our guests find their way out. And if you need a bathroom break, this is the time. We'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay, and we are back. Thank you for waiting patiently, those of you who are online and colleagues. So next up on our agenda is looking at some old business. We have Senate Bill 2205 to establish a behavioral health professional scholarship and for other purposes. At our last meeting, it was requested that we have additional comments requested from several of the agencies. Specifically, you guys wanted to hear from the Board of Professional Licensing, NMC, CHC, and the Commonwealth CGC. I did reach out to a CHC and CGC, which is actually the same place. They're under that, it's under that umbrella. And so they actually did provide comments already, and you received that for the first meeting. NMC did respond again and did give, you guys did receive those comments, and the CNMI Board of Professional Licensing also gave us their feedback. Some of the questions that we asked the Professional Board of Licensing to help us guide on our decision making. How many people are licensed in the CNMI behavioral health fields, and what kind or how many behavioral health professionals do we have in the CNMI and on each island? They did not have that information available because they only track the people that are in the government clinics, not in the private fields. They have 9 fully licensed psychologists in the CNMI. They have 6 fully licensed psychiatrists. So 9 psychologists, 6 psychiatrists. At this time, they do not have a, at this time, there is no, sorry, I'm looking for the right word. There is no, what's it called? Feasibility study? No, not in. There is no needs assessment of mental health providers. That is something that somebody had asked, and that is not a data point that we have at our fingertips. I'm not even sure who would do that kind of work. And one other comment that we did receive was from the PSS behavioral health team. Dr. Pangilinan sent us some comments, and I felt those comments were really helpful in deciding some of the things in our bill. And so if we could just discuss some of those things. One part of this bill kind of made it so that the scholarship would only be available to people off island, so it wouldn't be included for online programs. Is this something that we think we should maybe consider changing to let this scholarship be available to people who also take US accredited online courses? Would that be something we can possibly allow and entertain? Okay, so you agree. Maybe could I get a motion to include that as an amendment? So moved. All right, that section is page 6, line 20. You know, I don't think it's right because page 6, we only have page 6. Yeah, I noticed the lines were wrong on that too.
The agenda says 25 SS1, but there's a 25 SS1. Are we not working on the census?
It should be the SS1 version. Yes. Thank you for that. It was, my agenda was missing that. My bad. Can you help me find that part where it made its because it did not include online.
Oh, page 4.
Page 4.
Page 4, line 28.
Page 4, line 28. Yeah, it says that recipients of the behavioral health professional scholarship under this article shall not enroll in an online program that is not accredited or offer online education and accrediting body in behavioral health fields. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I too agree with the comments provided from Dr. Pangilinan. I believe we should include online classes, open as many doors as possible, as she states, including our local college, the University of Guam, stateside, online courses, as long as they're accredited, I think should be the issue. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. So, are we moving to move that line, that entire line? Just strike line C or line 28 through 30?
It's of their choice. The bottom line is any person that avails the behavioral has to go through the 2,000 hours, I believe, or some weird, whether they like it or not, whether it's online or in class, they still have to be supervised. So it really doesn't matter. I think it gives a fair shot to a lot of students that would like to go online and avail this program. They still have to work under kind of like an apprentice. You know, you work under a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist.
That's the next point that she makes.
Yes.
So
So we are moving to strike letter C, line 28 through 30, because that only relates to shall not enroll in online. So at least by removing that, it would allow for even online programs. Can I get a motion? So maybe it would, it's a confusing line. Maybe we could change it to make it so that it's, you can enroll in an online program as long as it is accredited. Legal?
Yeah, so I think that the first half of the sentence scans, but it seems like the syntax is, there's a typo in the syntax. Because like the recipients of the behavioral health professional scholarship under this article shall, the recipients of the behavioral health professional scholarship under this article shall not enroll in an online program that is not accredited. So that first clause seems to imply that they can enroll in an online program as long as it is accredited, but there seems to be a typo or something, because the second clause has syntax that doesn't really scan or offer online education and accrediting body. So there's something missing. Like maybe it's supposed to be that is not offered by or accredited by an online education and accrediting body or something. But there should be some amendment to clean up the second half of subsection C, and maybe I'm not even sure what the intention is with the second half of the subsection.
Would it mean the same thing if we say that shall enroll in a program, shall enroll in a program that is accredited?
Then it would be mandatory to enroll in an online program. But
well, if we take out the word online, because then if it doesn't say online, then it could be any kind of program, whether it's face to face or online, right?
okay, sure, yeah. So something like recipients must enroll in programs that are accredited by
Yes.
a qualified accrediting body or something.
I would like it to say something like that. So we have a motion. Can I get a second? Shall we go step by step? The wording, we're working on it right now.
I'm thinking, should we go over all the changes and then offer?
Oh,
them?
short recess. Huh? Yes?
Yeah.
We're back online. Thank you for waiting. While we were in recess, there was a really pertinent question that came up. And that question was, does the scholarship office have the authority to promulgate its own scholarships, specifically to the types? And our legal counsel does have an answer for us. So if I could recognize legal counsel.
Yes. Yes, 3 CMC 10105 G provides that the scholarship office may establish programs and criteria for education financial assistance, including but not limited to grants, scholarships, loans, and subsection H provides that it may set up procedures for awarding education financial assistance.
Thank you, legal. And so this is something that the scholarship office can possibly promulgate rules for if they so choose. With that in mind, can I get a motion? Recognize Rep. Yumel.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I now offer a motion to table Senate Bill 22-5 so we can clarify with the scholarship office as to their plans on graduate programs. Get more information. So move.
All right, there was a motion to table so we can get more information from the scholarship office on their plans for graduate programs. It was seconded. Can I get those in favor to say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We will table this as to get more information from the scholarship office. Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, Senate Bill 22808, Senate Substitute 1, to enact the CNMI Higher Education Act of 2021 and for other purposes. Last meeting we had, this bill was also tabled because we wanted to hear from more agencies. The agencies that we wanted to hear from were the Attorney General, NMC, Public School System, NMTI, Office of Personnel Management, and the Department of Labor. We did receive comments from NMTI, the Department of Commerce, the Office of Personnel Management, NMC, and the AG. There were lots of recommendations from NMC in particular, but also the AG. We received that one kind of late yesterday. I hope you guys all received it. Discussion. Go ahead, take some time to review your notes. Any thoughts, committee?
Chairwoman.
I recognize Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we did receive many comments, and the most recent one from the AG's office does offer about 15 recommendations. And I think that it would be in the best interest of this committee to fully assess the recommendations. And so I'd like to hear from the members, but I feel like this might take us some time to review, being that the bill is over 50 pages long. And so I'd like to maybe offer a motion, if there's no objection, that we just place this on the table and entertain it at our next committee meeting.
All right, there's a motion to table this to work on at our next meeting. Can I get a second? All right, there was a motion, it was seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We will table this bill and look at all of the comments, or take the comments that were given in consideration, and I can work with the author's legal counsel to address many of these concerns that were given by the multiple agencies who've taken the time to give us their comments. We want to make sure we address all of them, especially some of the ones that the AGs shared were very very detailed and should be clarified before we move forward on this. With that said, that concludes our old business. Moving on in our agenda, we have no new business. We are now at miscellaneous. Any discussion for miscellaneous? Recognize Rep. Babauta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I just wanted to state for the record that if you're going to meet with the legal counsel of the authors for these two bills, and whether that be informally or formally, please notify the committee so that we can join you and offer assistance should you need.
Absolutely, thank you. Any other miscellaneous? Okay, moving on. Announcements. Any announcements? All right, I believe we will be heading into the Thanksgiving weekend soon up after Wednesday. So in advance, happy Thanksgiving to all those out there, and to all of my colleagues and partners in this legislature. Thank you. All right, next up is adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Seconded, anybody? All right, it was seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. And the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.